Good morning. Welcome back. My name is Samantha Mirabal with Melco's application team, and I'm back. I was off June, and then the 4th of July snuck up on me. So now we are here. See what questions you have. These are design shop talks we tend to do weekly. We had a bit of a break while we were out doing summer things, but we're here now. So let us know what questions you have. Type them in the chats. Don't send them privately. I don't see those until long from now. I'll start off with some of the questions I have from before. If you have anything while we're live, please feel free to type them in. Let me make sure both platforms are up and working, maybe. Usually YouTube transcribes. Do we have sound? I assume we do. My system says we have sound, so I'm going to assume so. If we don't have sound, someone type it in so I don't run my mouth for too long. All right. Well, again, welcome. We'll go ahead and jump into the questions that were sent in ahead of time. All right, so I have a question. How do I use a stylus on a touch screen? What settings do I need to make DS recognize the stylus? It's kind of a loaded question. It's not designed for stylus, that sort of thing. So the styluses only really work when through Windows, they're treated as a mouse, and many styluses are not treated as mice. So because of that, they're not going to work. There are some that do. So there's some Wacom tablets that are set up that way. But it really depends on how the stylus is set up in Windows. It needs to be treated like a touchpad and a mouse, not a touch screen and a stylus. So you can play with the settings. I don't know a lot about that. I don't use a touch screen. I've used a stylus and a pad before, a specific pad for that, and that all behaves like a mouse, so it works fine. But you can play with Windows settings to see if you can get it to change how it sees the stylus itself, but without that, it's not going to recognize it. So that's that. How do you make a sun using yellow and orange with a gradient? Okay, so first step will be to get art. I don't have, what you want it to look like in the end. Let me go, this is for something else, another question we have. All right, so let's see. A few things. If you're unaware, under custom designs, under closed, right here, you've got a few different variegated things that you can play with just to see how they work, right? So like this one, if I wanted to make this be like a sun, I could say that's yellow, this is orange, and you can study the properties behind that to see how this gradient was done to get that variegated effect, right? So you do have these down here just for, if you need a rectangle, that's great. It's all pre-set up for you. But here's the fun part about it. You can see how it was done, okay? So you can look at like this final fill right here. You can see that it's a 4.0 fill at a 90 degrees. It's just here, if I hide the rest of this stuff, you'll see it. It's just a basic fill, right? This is where the blend comes in. So how is that one done? Well, you can double click on it and see again, it's set up as a fill with Trapunto. If you turn off Trapunto, you'll see what it does. It changes how the edges are, right? So just by looking through the settings, you can learn a lot. So Trapunto, it brings all the stitches to the edge. Again, it's the same angle as what's below, and that's important because the stitches can blend in. Here's the other fun part. You notice the previous one, the stitch length I pointed out was 40. This one's 35. If you do the same stitch length, they're going to be sitting on top of each other. You want a slightly shorter length for the color you want to blend in to kind of force it down into that fill, right? So there's that. Now, how do we get this to go from a big density here to a small density here? Well, that's done under effects. And you can see this is just a basic linear blend. So you turn on the custom density, reverse. That makes it go from dark up here. So if I turn that off, it goes dark down here. So, what look do you want? Do you want the tight density up at the top or at the bottom? Okay. And then you can play with this. Now, some other fun things you can try. I like turning on auto apply. Some of the other guys at Melco, they don't like that. I like it. But why is because I can add points and I can drag this around and see instantly what's changing. So I can add different points on here and move them around to get different effects, right? And it'll all behave differently. So now dragging that down, I got this kind of dense part in the middle. So I like that just so I can see what's happening as I'm adding points and turning it into a custom rather than a linear. Okay, so that little custom shape is always good. There are some custom fonts down here in the new version. Where are they? Gradients right there. So if you want to see gradient fonts and how they're done, these are like a 3-color version where you split. You've got a solid color at the top and the bottom, and then you blend through the middle to give it a full 3-color gradient. So there's that option. So knowing this, how would we make a sun? Well, I can go into a complex fill. I can create a circle. Left click, hold shift. All right, so I've got that. Now I can go into the properties and I can leave it at 75. I can make it 90. I'm gonna make it 90, leave the stitch length there, and we'll make that one yellow. Okay, cute. So now I can copy that, Control C, paste it, Control V, change its color. All right, that's a fill on top of a fill. Is that what we want? No. So I'm going to go into this guy, double click to the properties, go to effects, turn on the custom density, go to the underlay, because see all that other stuff in there? I don't want that. So we're going to turn all that off. Okay, oops, back in there. It's still set at 90, which is good. I need this to be shorter. And now I can look at this and go, is that what I want? I don't know, is it? If not, so that's exponential. We can do convex, so it's darker on the tops and bottoms. I can reverse that. It'll be dark in the middle. I can do a straight linear, so it goes from one to the end. And then again, notice the edges aren't, the stitching's not going to the edge. That's because Trapunto is not turned on. Now that'll make it nice and clean all the way to the edges. So maybe I want this to be a little bit darker. Again, you just play with it and see what you like. What looks good to you, you know. Is that too much? 20. So you can just play with the numbers, or I usually start doing this because I like looking at it real time rather than guessing at numbers. So I can move it around and go, okay, I like that. Okay, so creating blends is pretty straightforward to do. If I want a border on this, this one, remember, had a border over here. How would I, ooh, I moved it, whatever. How do I put a border on this? Well, select the shape, hold your shift key down on the keyboard, and click on this guy here. And now I've got a border on my fill. Okay, and what's another way we could do that? So I can select the shape again, click on this guy right here. So if you don't know the shift control trickety-do, you can click right here on change element type, and that lets you think about it. So I can go, okay, I want a single line center. I don't want to get rid of that shape. I want to add a new shape. So I'm going to say add, and there, that adds there. If I want to make it wider, I can play with the density up here. Hi Colleen, thanks. If, let's say, I've got a satin like this and I go, I really wish that was like a bean stitch. Okay, I don't have to redo it. I can hold my control key down. So shift adds, control is replace. So control is the same thing as clicking on replace, okay? So control, click on that. Now that's a walk stitch. I can make it a bean. Or one of my favorite things right now is to go into decorative and use this thin chain stitch. It's like a thick bean. I like it. It's great. So I usually come in here and just, I like it a little narrower personally, but that's one of my favorite things right now is that chain stitch. It's a decorative, so you can use that for anything. So if I go into decorative, chain thin, I can draw whatever shape I want. So I've been using it for like outline drawings, so that are just similar to red work or blue work, that sort of thing. I'm kind of attached to it at the moment. So anyway, so yeah, that puts borders on it. So we did a gradient of a sun, which was the question. So any other questions on that? Yeah. Okay. This person is wanting to look for a printer for sublimate. So this doesn't say it, so I'm going to point out a few things. Fabric printer for your money. So If you're looking for DTG, there's the F2270 that prints directly on fabric, right? So it's a direct-to-garment printer. You can use shirts, you can use fabric. It's designed around cotton fabrics predominantly, right? So you can do direct-to-garment that way. I believe if you're going for sublimation, sublimation is where you print on paper, a special paper, right? So you print on a paper that's designed to hold this weird ink, and you use weird color profiles, and it's all kind of strange if you're not used to it. Like, oh, this is my printer behind me. For instance, this weird color there, oh, it looks red on the screen, but it's from my camera, but that red actually on the paper in the room shows up as this weird maroon, but when you actually heat press it, it presses out as a bright red. So the inks are all kind of a weird magic in my opinion. But sublimation's cool. You print on paper, you print backwards in mirror because you're going to go to a heat press, and at 400 degrees you smash the fabric under some pressure. When you take the paper off, the ink has transferred from the paper onto your fabric, and it dyes the fabric. So sublimation's designed around polyester, direct-to-garment's designed kind of around cotton. Yeah. So what printer to use, it really depends on what size you want, right? So there is if you look at legal size paper, 8.5 by 14, I think it's under $500. Just an Epson printer you can get that's designed for legal size paper. So 8.5 narrow, and then I think it's 14 long. This one here that I have listed is designed for up to 24-inch wide. So if you're looking to do tabloid type sizes and things like that, this one would be better suited. And then of course they make giant printers that are designed for full print, similar to the thing I have behind me, which that one's a Roland. It's designed for banners and stickers and that kind of stuff. But there's a Epson that's massive like that, that'll print on, that's designed around really wide format sublimation. Okay, so it's really based on your size. I would say this one, or if you can handle the 8.5 by 14, there's that $500 one. This one is roughly 25-ish. What is it? 25 and change, so closer to 26. Okay, 2600. All right, let me go check, make sure we have no questions so far. All right, Bezier and Freehand, difference in usage. Okay, so when I was digitizing that funny little line there, what I'm doing here is left clicks for straight points, right clicks for curves, right? So when you go back and look at those points, you'll see there's these handles here. Those are Bezier handles. It lets you change how the curves and everything look, right? Okay, so you can play with them by messing with those handles. Whereas if I change the mode from right here, which is Bezier digitizing mode, which is where you do those left click, right click, you have those Bezier handles to adjust. Freeform, I can now draw on my screen, and it will create those for me to approximate the thing I just did. So again, I clicked on walk, clicked on the freeform, and I'm left clicking and just holding my left mouse down and drawing. And when I hit escape, you'll see it created that line for me, approximating where I drag my mouse around. So that's the difference between your freeform and your Bezier. One, you're individually clicking and thinking about whether you're left click, right click. The other, you're just dragging your mouse around the screen, right? So freeform, if I want to do an S, okay, I drew an S. Or I can use Bezier mode and draw an S. I have to think about it now, right? I drew an S, but I had to click around and think about it. Okay, and if I don't like the shape of it, that's cool. I can, if I had art and I was tracing it, it would be better, but I don't. So I can move my things around and adjust it. Okay. All right, what other questions do we have? I don't see any typed in yet. Let me go make sure there's nothing on YouTube. Nope. Or Facebook. Nope. So we are still good. All right, let's see, what else? There isn't a newer video of multiple hooping. It's all the same. So of how to do it in DS12 Professional, it's all done the same way. So whether I've done continuous hoopings from V9 all the way through now V12, and I do it all the same. So I have an example. So let's say I want to do a great big banner, right? Oops, let's turn all this off. So let's say I want to do a great big banner that is 46 inches long and 10 inches tall, and it says welcome. All right, so a great big runner or something like that. It's just huge. Clearly, we don't have hoops that will do a 46 inch, or sorry, is that 46 inches? Yeah, 46 inch wide embroidery. We don't have a hoop that's going to do that, right? So what do we do about it? Well, the first thing I always do is I digitize it in a single file like this. All right, so that's what all of this is. So if I turn on 3D, let me turn off this stuff so you can see it. This is set up as a tackle twill applique, and or just like an applique file. And it's all, the entire file is done how I want to sew it. Okay, so while I can't actually send this to go sew, why do we do that? So we digitize the whole design because then we have to decide how on earth are we going to break this thing up, right? So I always do that this way. So let me go open square hoop. All right, so first step is once I target what hoop I want to use. So in this case, I decided I wanted to use this great big square wooden hoop. So if I right click, go down here and say, all right, I want to use this hoop. All right, and that's the hoop I'm targeting. I then took this vector line and just roughly traced around it. I'm not going to get close to it. If I were going to get really close to it, I'd want to go make this actually accurate. I'm just using it for a reference point. So for me, I don't care how close it is to the outline. I just need it to be in family, if you will. All right, why did I do that? So I can come over here and move these guys around and decide how I'm going to split this apart. So my first hooping, I'm just going to sew the W. All right, and then I'm going to put an alignment point over here. That's what this weird white X is, and I'll talk about that in a second. But I'll put that somewhere that's going to be covered up later. Okay, so you notice that's there because the E fabric, that when I put that fabric down for the applique, that X will be covered up. All right, that thing comes into play for the alignment. Second, all right, I get a second hoop. I'm going to sew these two letters, and then I still have room to put an X over here for my next hooping for alignment purposes. All right, this one, if I move this around, if I tried to do the C and the O, I really don't have room here to put something to be covered, which is why I said, all right, that one's just going to be the one letter. Same with this green hoop. I really don't have room to put two letters plus an alignment thing, so it's going to be one letter for that hoop. Just the M for this hooping, because I still have room over here. And then the very last hoop is this one. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 hoopings, all right, to get this thing done. Okay, so once you decide what it is, how did I think about these X's of where they're going? All right, you've got to understand a little bit about how the alignment works. So if I go in your manual, I've got it copied out here somewhere. Let's see, there. There's a whole bunch of ways to do this, right? So whether you're going to align left, align right, how are we going to align this? Are we going to center it between our points? But essentially what you're going to do with laser alignment is you're going to pick 2 points. You're going to give it some sort of command, whether it's laser left, laser right, and laser bullseye like this, or laser left, laser bullseye, centers it. For this big of a project, I'm going to assume this is how we're going to do it. Laser left, laser right, laser bullseye. That aligns it to the first, basically left justifies it, so that your starting point is over the very first click that you made. So that first laser left, that will be your starting point, that first point. okay, is where the needle's going to end up when it goes to the center of the design. Okay, so because it left justifies it. So understanding that, now let's go look at the Britfire. Thanks. Yeah, I'll show you that in a second. Let's see. All right, so how I'm going to do this is I'm going to take my fabric, I'm going to chalk or do one of the lines that you can wash away. I'm going to draw a straight line using a ruler all the way down. Okay, so that's this red line right here, the center. Okay, so that's so I can do my alignment points along there, and that will keep everything straight. Then all you have to do is pick that first point, because remember I said we're going to do laser left. Then we're going to go along that blue line, or the line that you have chalked on your fabric. Pick somewhere else. The further away, the straighter it tends to be. So I'm going to go over here, and I'll say laser right, laser bullseye, and it will come and center over this point. Okay, so when I hoop for the second one, as long as my design keeps this relative to the rest of it, then we're good to go. So if I go to the E, what does that mean? That means my little X, which is right here, has to be on this, the center marking. So as long as that's there and I keep the relative distance for everything, then I'm set, because now when I do laser left on the X that's sewn on, laser right somewhere over here, and laser bullseye, it will straighten it so that this E and L are aligned to the previously done W, and my needle will be placed right there. So when I start the design, the E and L will be exactly in line with the W. All right, and then again, I picked an X over there, which I chose that in this hooping already. Why? So that I have that relative to the rest of this. So when I go to create the C file, I would select all of that, plus the next X, which we need. I'm going to copy that, go to a new file, paste it, and then move it. So oops, it's out in La La Land. All right, there we go. I'm moving it the wrong way. There we go. Because I have to position that X where we're right on the center there. There. Okay. And then we don't want to resew that X. I mean, you can, but I don't want to resew it, so I'm going to delete it. And now this file is set up to sew the C. So again, I would hoop my fabric, so this X is in the hoop, because remember the C is not sewn yet. So that X and the L is kind of overlapped. I'd laser left, laser right somewhere on the drawn line on the fabric, laser bullseye, then sew my C. And you just keep doing that. So does that make sense? It's really, you have to understand, pick a method of how you want to do it. You can use points of these sort of things, but then you've got to make sure they're in the hoop. So it's generally easier to do a chalk line and then one registration point, and then just do laser left, laser right, left to justify, and sew it. And it'll, through all 7 hoopings, it'll be nice, evenly spaced, just like it is here. Okay? So that is kind of the fundamentals of it, right? Any questions on that before we jump back to? Yeah, we've got you an article to laser alignment. There's a bunch of, as you pointed out, older videos, but they still apply. The techniques that you use are all the same. It's really a thinking exercise of how do you want to break your project apart to do multiple hoopings. So and what are you going to use for the alignment? Is it something you're going to pick out? I've done, like this particular one, I made it so all these X's get covered, so I don't have to worry about picking them out. But I've had places where I've had to do things out in space, and when you have that, well, that means it's going to be visible unless I cut it out. So in those cases, making the stitch length longer makes it easier to cut the stitches and pull it out. So I usually aim for around 40 points so that it stays, but when I go to rip it out, I don't have a gazillion tiny little stitches that I'm trying to cut out. So it's more like a basting stitch, if you will. Okay. So just, you got to think about it and plan out your project. How are you going to split it apart? How are you going to make sure that it stays in line? Are you going to use 2 points? You know, are you going to purposely stitch in 2 registration points, or are you going to chalk a line to begin with? So thinking through that as an exercise is the first step. And then after that, it's just kind of busy work of splitting it all apart and saving it off into the individual files. How do you change the colors on a file you purchase? Okay, so when you buy files, they don't, oh, I'm sorry, before I get into that, let me go back to the one that was typed in while we were live. How do I do a real size printout of a design to see how it's going to look before I stitch out? So I can't do that on this project because it's gargantuous. Let me go open up something else. All right, so open. Let's go to the C drive, designs, legacy, and I'm going to open the expanded one here because the next question I can use the same file. Okay. All right, so this design is roughly 3 inches. If I go File, Print, I have the origin on, but I do not have the grid. And there we go. Let me drag it over. Maybe. All right. So right here, actual size. Notice it says actual size. So if you tell it to print actual size, if it won't fit here, it'll print it on the next pages. So it's pretty much that simple. You make sure this is toggled on. If that's off, if this is bigger, so right there you see it says not actual size versus actual size, it will put it to the actual size of the item. Okay, so then you can cut that out and stick it on your item and call it good. If the grid were turned on over here, so, oh, actually, 12 is different. On the other one, if you had to have the grid on, and if you turn that on, you'd see it. See, now I've got a grid placement, and that red line is showing up. I can turn those off by turning that off, and it will redo this without that origin line or without the grid behind it. So it's just a matter of toggling these things on or off to suit what you're trying to do. So Britfire, did that help? Okay. So the other question we had was, how do I get the file I purchased, how do I get the colors to be what I want? Okay, so when you, depending on how you purchase the file, it's going to show up in bizarre colors like this, but that's going to be expanded stitch files that do not save the colors within the file. So the DST files, the EXPs, those files don't save color information in the file. So since there's no, it doesn't say that the pears are supposed to be yellow and the leaves are supposed to be green. It has literally just a whole bunch of commands on where to go make needle penetrations and trims and where to make a color change. It doesn't say with that color change, use this color. It just says, now we're going to go to a different color. Okay, what color? Who knows? Whatever you thread the machine with. All right, so that information is not saved in the file, so you can't use it. So if I want to change it, I would come into my file, open up that DST or EXP, and come select the actual colors I want it to be, right? So I'm just using default colors here. But you would save it to whatever colors you want, and you can see now they're using Madeira colors because that's how I have it set up. And if I do a file save as, and I save it as an OFM, it now will save that. I'm going to save it as expanded so I don't overwrite my actual OFM. Now, every time I open it, these colors will be there because OFM files save the color information in it. Okay. Now, if you buy a Jeff file or a Huss or a art file, PES files, they save some color information in there. It doesn't always translate one-to-one, but it gets you close usually. So that's another option. So instead of downloading your DST files, you can download a Jeff or a Huss or a art, PES, any of those sorts, EMB. Those usually save color information in the file itself. So when you open it, it'll show up that way. Okay. those were the questions I had sent in ahead of time. Any other questions before we call it a day? And I will be back next week, so we're back to doing this on a weekly basis. So when you see these typed in on social media, this little screen will pop up with me asking, hey, what questions do you have? If you type in any questions on that, if it needs prep, I'll try to make an example beforehand. Or in the case I don't know the answer, I'll try to find it before live, rather than me staring at the screen going, I don't know, I'll have to get back to you. It's only been a few times you guys have stumped me, so hey, good job. Oh, I'm happy to be back. Did a vacation and then got sick, and then 4th of July, and it's been a month. So it's been a while. So I'm happy to be back. Some sense of normalcy coming back into life. All right. So other than that, next week, I think Thursday is going to be the day. Let me quick check. Yep. Next week is Thursday, and then we'll try to go Friday on the week after that. But next week is Thursday. So I will be back next Thursday. If you have any questions, anyone else have one before I jump offline? I'm going to ramble or stare at the screen for a little bit longer in case someone's typing and I don't jump off before you got a chance to hit enter. I don't see any. All right, everyone, have a fantastic weekend. I am glad to be back. Let us know what questions you have. Try to get them answered. If you have projects or things you want to learn about, also let us know. And we'll try to get those in as well. All right, everyone, have a great weekend, and I will be back next Thursday, noon my time, which I'm in Florida, so it's Eastern time. I think it's 10 Mountain. And till then, I will talk to you then. Bye, everyone.